Nuclear energy is a dangerous distraction and a waste of time.
We should start immediately with nuclear. We've already waited too long.
Already you're talking about R1 trillion spent on nuclear energy. Who's going to get the contract?
Nuclear is a clean form of energy.
The key factors standing against nuclear really are the cost and the implementation time.
Nothing ignites passions quite like nuclear power. Costly, dirty and dangerous to its detractors. To its supporters, it's the way to a cleaner world. A feasible option to generate large amounts of energy without burning coal. Within the next 10 years, government plans to introduce 9,600 megawatts of nuclear energy. That's the equivalent of 2 mega coal-fired power stations. The Minister of Energy recently announced that 850 million rand would be set aside this year for nuclear research and development. But this is just a fraction of what the entire project would cost. Nuclear plants the size government is looking at come with a price tag of between 400 billion and 1 trillion rand. Unaffordable, it seems, when Eskom is already in the red and Treasury can't afford to take on any more debt.
I think the question should be, can we afford not to? The initial investments in nuclear are high, but when you consider what is called levelized cost of generation, that is when you take into consideration the lifespan of the nuclear power plant. So in the long run, electricity generated by nuclear is a lot cheaper than other technologies.
Market researchers have warned maintenance of nuclear plants can also cost a pretty penny.
A certain project in the US have actually encountered issues where they've had really expensive repairs that they have had to face. And this has escalated operating costs exponentially to the point where wholesale electricity prices are almost unable to cover the operating costs.
When one builds a harbour, you don't say how much will the harbour cost. You say what is the investment so that ships can come in and out and do exports for your country and imports. It's the same with this. We need the power and we must do it.
Not everyone agrees. UCT's Energy Research Centre compiled a special report on the country's future needs, which informed the National Development Plan. It found that considering the high financial risks, there's no need to make a decision right now. With the mega coal-fired power stations Medupi and Kusile likely to come online within a year or two, South Africa won't require a major power station for some time.
We found that nuclear power wouldn't be needed at the earliest by 2029 and at the latest by 2040, so that's quite a range. Take 10 years off that for the lead time. That means a decision has to be made in 2019 at the earliest.
The government, however, says that several large coal-fired power stations will be at the end of their lifespan between 2020 and 2030. There are also arguments that nuclear is the best option to diversify energy supply across the country.
The distance between Pretoria and Cape Town is the same distance as Rome to London. All of South Africa's coal is in the northeast, up by Pretoria and in Mpumalanga area and in the northern KwaZulu-Natal. We need baseline power from the bottom of the country up.
A big nuclear build will certainly mean more jobs.
The nuclear program is broader than a nuclear power plant. It includes skills development, infrastructure, it includes equipment manufacturing facilities, it includes mining.
But some experts argue that importing gas and hydroelectric power from our neighbours can provide a cheaper power supply in a shorter space of time. That's why political analyst Justice Malala questions government's insistence on pushing ahead so quickly.
Your most extensive assessment, the National Development Plan, has said don't do it. Where does the logic of doing it come from? Why suddenly is it the center and the masterpiece of President Zuma's administration over the next 5 years? And for me, the warning lights begin to go off.
The warning lights burn even brighter for Professor Winkler as the tender processes for nuclear energy are vague.
The situation we have is that the new electricity generation regulations, which fall under the Electricity Act, explicitly exclude nuclear. So they treat all technologies in one way. And then they basically say, no, but nuclear will not be done in this way, and it is unclear precisely how nuclear would be procured.
The department is unable to explain why nuclear power is excluded from the regulations, but insists that the projects will go through a transparent procurement process. There are also worries the tender process will be left up to the minister's discretion, a minister whom the public protector found to have acted improperly and unethically during her tenure in the Agriculture Department.
Unfortunately, the person who's been appointed to the portfolio leaves absolutely no one, whether people who worked in agriculture, in fisheries, with any confidence whatsoever that this time it will be better, it will be different, because the evidence is not there. How is it going to be better with a minister who has on so many occasions been found by the public protector to not have been prudent with taxpayers' money?
Cost and transparency aren't the only concerns. While nuclear energy doesn't emit greenhouse gases like coal, a radioactive disaster is a very real threat, especially when people live near to a nuclear plant.
I need to highlight that there is experience in South Africa. We have got the Quebec nuclear power plant that has operated safely for more than 30 years.
As much as anybody can say, yes, well, if it runs perfectly, it'll be fine. But the nuclear industry has a history of having huge nuclear accidents pretty much about once a decade since Chernobyl. So that argument simply doesn't work because nuclear is actually, it's run by humans.
Nuclear is the answer for the future. By the time we get going with nuclear, there's going to be lots more following in the pipeline. In fact, right now, South Africa is seen by the international community as being a leader in nuclear.
While there are many arguments for and against nuclear, the main disagreements surrounding its expansion here in South Africa are timing and transparency. Do we need to make the decision right now? And if government pushes forward quickly, are we headed for another corruption scandal in a project that could be up to 20 times the size of the arms deal? What is clear is that every step government takes has to be done out in the open to prove to South Africans that we are making the right decisions for the right reasons. Paula Charles, Cape Town.